Hello and welcome back to another episode of Nick Tiffany's Movie Reviews, coming at you online and in print format at nicktiffany.com, in audio format wherever you get your podcasts, and even in video on YouTube, TikTok, Reels, Shorts. Pretty much we're everywhere. So wherever you get your media, you're more than likely welcome to find us there. Today, we're coming back from a little hiatus, a wedding hiatus. I knew getting into this movie season at the beginning of the year while planning and getting married was going to be, a little time away from movies, and I'm glad that it was. But it was the best day of my life, and it's really good now to be kind of easing back into the world of movies. And so what better movie to come back from a honeymoon and see than Dune Part 2? Granted, this is a movie that should have been released last year. Hollywood strikes, Warner Brothers fumbling all their bags, having a natural competitor, quite truthfully, to Oppenheimer. But the way it worked out, I think, will probably work out well at the Oscars this weekend. Hopefully, Christopher Nolan takes home that Best Director. Oppenheimer might take home Best Picture. I'm not sure. But I know that if Dune 2 had come out when it was supposed to, I think this Oscars race would have looked a lot different. I mean, this movie already has cleared 200 million worldwide opening weekend, tied Oppenheimer's opening weekend, which a lot of people are saying, remember, some of that might be inflated because of the whole Barbenheimer deal. It's a good metric, though, when you're comparing opening weekends to the 3-hour biography that's mostly talking about science. But Dune, this was so well worth the wait. I had happened to catch the IMAX re-release of Part 1 in theaters just a few weeks prior, which was unbelievable. Hadn't seen it in the IMAX format at the time when it had come out. Watched it a lot at home on video, but I don't know. IMAX is the definitive way to see both of these films. So trying to find a seat, well, I should say 2 seats next to each other for this film has been unbelievable. So I'd made the reservation, my seating reservation for last Sunday to go see it with my best friend. It was the only Sunday at 10 p.m. was the only time we could find decent seats towards the middle where there were actually 2 next to each other. Everything else is either sold out or maybe there's 1 or 2 spots left. So sneakily, I think last Friday or Saturday, I snuck out for an early morning screening at one of the Regal RPX theaters just because I couldn't wait. I was that guy, and I sat in between 2 strangers, but I was smack dab right in the middle. They had the recliner, which the IMAX didn't, so I was like, all right, we're really going to enjoy this one. And I mean, I kid you not, the theater was packed to the brim at 10 a.m., and along with the rest of the audience, I mean, I ate it up. I, more so than I think Part 1, was just incredibly moved by everything that Denis Villeneuve and Craig Fraser were able to create just with their look and feel for the entire film. Hans Zimmer, I didn't think he could come back with another bombastic new score that would rival his first one, but he does things totally different here in Part 2, plays around with some of the similar drum and percussive beats, but really brings in a whole new use of instruments and just gives a whole new feel to the second part. I mean, credit to the entire team, because the movie picks up right where Part 1 left off. You're immediately embedded with the Fremen. Lady Jessica and Paul are now traveling with them. Paul is starting to, think through more of his prophetic visions. He's finally met Chani, who he's seen multiple times in his dreams. Really starting to follow some of their relationship. He's just killed Jamis in the end of the first film, and now Stilgar, played by Javier Bardem, is kind of taking on this mentoring role because of what he sees and believes within Paul. Timothée Chalamet, I think benefits from looking a few years older in this movie than he did in Part 1. I mean, he definitely fit more of the 14 or 15-year-old descriptor that Frank Herbert had in the original Dune novels. But by Part 2, not only has he kind of, I think, solidified himself as a much more serious and better actor, he's got a lot more films under his belt now. It's funny because coming off of Wonka, which has been quietly hugely successful, and I thought he was really terrific in. A lot of people are like, all right, Wonka's back, riding sandworms and everything. And all jokes aside, Timothée Chalamet steps up to the plate and delivers. Uh, there's a quietness to his performance and this humbleness, which the character is supposed to exhibit, I would say, just as far as really feeling like he cares about the people he's around. He really wants to respect and honor their traditions, doesn't want to insert himself in people's business. But, it's like, if you can let me help you, that is more than I could ask for. And I think he plays the role brilliantly because so much of that fuels what could be love with Chani. And, she is a really strong-willed character, who does not believe what the fundamentalist Southern population of the Fremen believes. She doesn't believe in this prophecy that the Bene Gesserit have slowly been seeding throughout the galaxy. She believes if someone's going to free the Fremen and restore glory and paradise to Arrakis, that it's going to be one of their own. And that's something that Paul can get behind. But Stilgar and others are still, chanting, Lisan al-Gaib. He is the voice from the outer worlds, the mother and the son coming here to complete their prophecy. It's just, I would strongly urge people watch the first film again before going into this. Watch it with subtitles, or do a little, maybe just a background of the world it inhabits, because I think a lot of people are going to go into this and also see a lot of Star Wars, which makes sense because Star Wars was kind of taken from Dune. George Lucas making a sillier space version of that focused a little more on the creatures. But there's so many moments throughout, especially this part 2, where you're like, wow, all right, Star Wars is a little less subtle than I thought they were. They certainly make some different creative choices, but a lot of the core of what's going on there is at the heart of Dune. And after watching part 2, I really can't help but think that Denis Villeneuve really, in 2 films, just for these 2 Dune films, they're better than anything Star Wars has done from the prequels to now, maybe save for Rogue One, which is another Greg Fraser cinematographer epic, but just totally serious and totally different than all the other Star Wars before it. It really did feel like a film, first and foremost, just incredible story and characters. But yeah, I don't know. Watching this movie, it was like, wow, all right, I'm definitely picking up on the Star Wars influences here, whether it was Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, A New Hope, or even some of the prequels. So there's a lot of politics at play in this part 2. So watching that first one again, I think was a really good refresher for me as far as what this Emperor figure is doing, how long the Harkonnens had been ruling Arrakis, and why they would want to try to come in and just obliterate them under the fall of night. I think for me, I got way more out of the Bene Gesserit storyline and this whole concept of these evil witches who for centuries have been sowing these seeds of prophecy in every nook and cranny of the galaxy, while also continuing bloodlines of royal families, only supposed to be having girls, till eventually they feel like they've got the right grouping of people to create this Messiah child boy who will eventually be stronger than anything and can merge time and space. There was so much of that I feel like I just didn't get from the first even few watchings of the movie. Granted, when I watched Dune Part 1 in theaters, it was the 21 and up theater for a friend's birthday. So we were having some drinks. We were having a good time. The movie rocked, and we were like, that was awesome. I don't, I didn't go way into the lore like my sister did reading the books, but on a recommendation, I kind of went back to it, paid a little more attention. It was like, okay, wow, there's a complex grouping of narratives here. There's a lot of political intrigue going on in this universe that they have. A lot of similarities to our own worlds and universe, but certainly expanded upon this time around. I mean, we're really planet hopping here. We go to Giedi Prime, where the Harkonnens are from, and we kind of got a glimpse of it in the first movie, but in this film we get this incredible gladiator style Colosseum experience under the Harkonnens' black sun, which creates, just complete. You see people as they walk out into the light, changing from color to almost like a translucent white. Everyone's robes, everything just becomes clear white, and eyes just turn jet black. It's super unsettling because the Harkonnens are already, they remind me a lot of the guys from Mad Max shouting "witness," getting ready to spray themselves with with whatever their carbon spray was. Um, but man, Austin Butler comes out in full freak force as Fade Rotha, who's kind of the nephew to the Baron of the Harkonnens, played by Stellan Skarsgård. He still has his creepy floating back ability, but this time he's a little more on life support after what had happened in the first film. Uh, Austin Butler, just does not look like Austin Butler at all. Unless you knew going into the movie that he was going to be in it, you really couldn't tell until he opens his mouth. And he, for the most part, maintains a pretty good sort of impression of Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron. But every now and then, his little Elvis straw kind of comes out, but it's kind of covered by something else. And so it's kind of funny. But he's ruthless. He's brutal. He's a total freak and just has this fetish for blood and fighting and pain. So he is this interesting adversary and foil to Paul Atreides, who is, this kind of gentle duke who isn't seeking to lead, possibly, but as things would happen, the Fremen can only fight back so much. The Harkonnens return to Arrakis to try to harvest the spice. Obviously, Paul wants revenge, something his mother tells him that his father probably wouldn't have done, but, he's also not his father. So I won't go too much more into the story just because it really is somewhat dense, and I think a lot of it needs to be seen to understand it all. There's a lot you can't say without sort of spoiling things as well. But just know the script is incredible. The characters that they bring into this world are phenomenal. Denis Villeneuve has just been on a monster run since 2013, from Enemy and Prisoners to Blade Runner to Sicario, Arrival, Dune. Just the man is crafting projects at such a level. And it's not even the frequency at which he's doing it, but each of those projects you can sit and watch. You can see a resemblance in some of how he makes his films. There is this almost, at least from Arrival and Blade Runner on, a really religious approach, or a spiritual approach, I should say, to how he handles either the source material or the scope of which he's telling these stories. And, he's kind of come out in the last month or so as people are doing articles and interviews for the movie. He's talked about how younger generations are really looking for new fantastical tales that just aren't all dialogue. There was this huge push for a long time where it's like everything's got to be dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. We need to tell you exactly what's happening. We need to tell you what you need to feel, because people are either so dumb, or people just, studios are so worried that people aren't going to get it, that you have to tell you what you're going to feel in this moment. And that is really where you get this trifecta of Fraser, Zimmer, and Villeneuve working from visual, directorial, and audio standpoint, and placing Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet on top of these sand dunes, and almost like John Williams with his swelling score behind Luke, you've got this beautiful giant image of these two people zooming out looking like ants in this endless desert. It looks stunning. The music sets the tone, and rather than having words spoken, the two of them sit in and take in the world around them, and then they take in a moment with one another. And for the audience, maybe it's a minute of no dialogue, we're just witnessing this happen, but there's so many sweeping moments like this in Dune Part 2 that just, to me, are like a quintessential movie moment. There's things like a build up to the first kiss, things like a build up to a last battle, moments where your characters are going to be put in peril, certain things that, you go into movies expecting and waiting for a triumphant moment. The funniest thing at our IMAX theater, I'm like, it's funny, it's cool, goofy, it's all over the place. But the guy, like the row in front of us and a couple seats over, clearly is a massive Dune fan. He's there with his wife, and like, I'm watching him like moving in his seat. And at first, I'm like, I'm moving enough because of the IMAX speakers and how much our seats are shaking. But this dude's just having a physical reaction to what he's seeing on the screen, and like, short of clapping at certain moments, he's putting his fists up in the air like, yes, oh my god. Paul's finally riding on the sandworm. The music swells, and this guy's like jaws on the floor. We're helping him pick it back up, and he's like melting in his seat. And I mean, I kept looking at my buddy because I'm like, we were just kind of grinning and laughing. Partially though, because I'm like, man, I've got goosebumps at so many moments in this film. So I'm like, I'm not quite where he's at, but I'm like, I can understand it. It's a little goofy, it's a little silly, but I understand that. And to me though, that's a sign of great cinema. When I looked around in our audience, I mean, people were laughing at Stilgar. I think Javier Bardem's kind of religious, not drunk uncle, but funny, goofy, believes in this stuff way too much. I mean, he sells the part so well. He's a great mentor to Paul while also still kind of having some of this laughter break, because it's like, yeah, some of this is kind of crazy, I'm gonna ride the sandworm, but don't try to show off or anything. It's like, hey, I'm new to this, but I don't know, my audience each time, just looking around, and maybe it's a weird thing I do when I'm at the movie sometime, but for events like this, or for films that feel like an event on an opening night, on an opening weekend that's sold out, people have been waiting to see this. People have been dying to be in this moment together. It's just a cool thing. And when everyone feels like they're having that kind of collective euphoria of like, these three sandworms are coming, I'm like, it's just, there are so many unbelievable moments in this movie that just like, you shed a tear. It's like, man, I hate to use this analogy, but I'm like, sometimes I measure my life in movies. There's moments where it's like, asteroids could strike the earth, tidal waves could consume us, but please let it happen after Dune Part 2 comes out, or please let it happen after the next Tarantino movie releases, or please let me get the next Nolan or DiCaprio movie, whatever it is. Like, it could be music, it could be certain things. It's good to have those little benchmarks, things to look forward to. But this was totally one of those, like, man, it's like, experiencing that in IMAX is an experience I won't forget. Will not long forget, for sure. I mean, it feels like the quintessential way to see these Dune films in all their glory. The acting is just top notch across the board. Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet are just fantastic together. They really build a unique and worthwhile chemistry that just grows far more interesting, especially towards the end of the film. Austin Butler and Florence Pugh, though they're only in the film maybe 20, 30 minutes, it feels like they're there longer, perhaps, especially in Butler's case. But they come in, own their roles immediately, feel like they belong in that universe. Christopher Walken is playing the Emperor, which at one point I was like, I'd forgotten that he was cast as that role. And when he comes on the screen, I was like, oh crap. I'm like, Christopher Walken, what's this going to be like? And he goes subtle here. He plays down a little bit, which I think worked out pretty well. There's so much of a science fiction angle in this film, much like the first, that really spends the time looking at some of this Fremen technology, looking at how you would survive in this world out there. And there's just so much attention to detail, from the machinery to the tools they're using, that just, it's fascinating. From the worm design and how they might have these different air holes to breathe while they're being ridden. I mean, so much of it you can tell they crafted for so long to make sure it looked real, breathed real, acted real in the moments. Shooting on location certainly benefits this film so much, because Zendaya's character is right. When the sun is low and the desert out there looks beautiful, there's nothing out there, but it just looks stunning watching the sand and the spice sort of being blown over, watching them kind of do their little sand walk dance almost together. There's just so many beautiful moments that this film allows to breathe, it allows to have. And in the same token, there's some devastating moments in this movie. So many things that I did not see coming. So many moments that I was glad I didn't read the rest of the book or read spoilers on after watching the first movie, because I wanted to know what was going to happen. But maybe because I knew Warner Brothers was like, well, we're not going to greenlight a Dune Part 2 until the first one comes out and see if it makes money. I'm like, whatever, screw you guys. It was going to be a success. And immediately they greenlit it after the first weekend. So, you know, screw them for that. But now hopefully we're going to get that Dune Messiah announcement any day now, because the way this film ends is just on a monstrous level that I certainly didn't see coming, knowing nothing about the books before this. I'm like itching real bad now to read Dune Messiah and see what's coming, and I almost don't want to, though, because I'm just so impressed with the visual language that Denis Villeneuve created for this book. I mean, it just, coming out of that movie felt like coming out of Prometheus again years back, where it's like, all right, I'm going to get on Reddit, I'm going to get online on Twitter, wherever it is, wherever people are talking about this movie, from spoilers to theories to all these different connective tissue things from the first film to this. It is just, God, it's just such a cool film. It is such an experience. And I mean, it's just, to me, I really enjoyed the first. This one is unbelievable. And I've seen a lot of people, again, they make that Star Wars Dune comparison. Knowing me, knowing the kind of movies that I'm into, knowing the more mature take and tone that I enjoy. I mean, I loved Andor, loved Rogue One. Um, I don't know. I mean, again, I said it earlier. Dune, these two films are better than anything Star Wars has done, save for maybe Andor and Rogue One since the original films. But there is a feeling I have that maybe is akin to people watching the first Star Wars in theaters all those years back, where it's like, this is unbelievable. I haven't seen movie making and storytelling and science fiction at this level before. And it sets the bar incredibly high for whatever is to come after. But I just, the time and patience Villeneuve spent making this film, taking the time to really craft these epics. Cheers to him. Cheers to everybody involved. I'm going to see it again tonight in like 5 hours again in IMAX. So, taking another friend and the wife who have yet to see it at IMAX. So it's going to be incredible. It really, oh my God. I'm debating doing a spoiler talk at some point, because I'm going to do an episode. We'll talk about the first Dune. We'll talk about Tenet, which they reissued in IMAX. It's been a freaking unbelievable a good year for IMAX, and it's only going to get better. I'll stop geeking out, you guys. Thank you again for listening. Thank you again for your patience. We're going to be getting back in the review swing of things here. This year might look a little different than last year. I'm not saying I'm going to be a little more choosy with some of the movies I go out and review. Maybe I am saying that, but, is finding the best work-life, social balance, movie balance, everything, I think I definitely want to come on here and talk about a lot of things that I'm passionate about, a lot of movies that I enjoy. That, the best part about this reissue for Dune Part 1 or Tenet was those came out when I was not reviewing movies at the time. And I saw them both and was like, man, I can't wait to freaking talk to somebody about these things, because I've got a lot of questions and I've got a lot of opinions. And so already it's been kind of cool that, like, okay, well, I haven't gone and seen Bob Marley or Madam Web or some of these other ones yet, and I'm sure I'll catch up on those eventually. It felt like, yeah, I'm going to go prioritize Tenet, and I'm going to go prioritize Dune Part 1 in IMAX before I go see those. So you might see me choosing to review earlier films. There's going to be a lot of 4K film releases, like for some of James Cameron's movies, The Abyss, Aliens. Maybe we'll get Terminator that got True Lies. And so I think, it could be a really good opportunity as well to kind of do a great blend of some new theatrical and some old, just so you guys get a better taste maybe of like at least what my preferences are. I feel like by now, if you've watched enough of these, you might be able to tell which movies I kind of lean towards or which directors. But as always, this is an awesome experiment. It's just really great to be back doing this in any capacity and having you all listen. So thank you all. You can find NT Movie Reviews on all social media platforms, anywhere that you get your podcasts, YouTube for video, nicktiffany.com. If you want to read things, we got it all. So thank you guys. Catch you next time.